You know your illustrations can be better and you want to improve them, but you're not sure what to do in order to make that happen. You feel like maybe you're missing something. This is a frequent conversation that I have students during my consults. I'm Clint, a professional illustrator and art educator, and this episode is brought to you by Skillshare. But more about them and the art class I have out on their platform at the end of the episode. For right now, ultimately, we want to talk about how to improve your illustrations. But we're actually going to start by talking about these little guys. You know what those are? Legos. I played with Legos a lot as a kid. I think a lot of us did. Well, say I go out there and I buy myself a set of Legos. Right? What am I going to get in that? I'm going to get a bag that has a bunches of pieces in it, but I'm also going to get a nice little booklet. In this booklet is going to have a number of steps. And say that I want to build myself a spaceship. And this booklet has a series of steps in it. Step number 1, step 100, then that's where I would have my completed spaceship. Right, and put some little fins on it or whatever. I'm going to start right here at step number 50. Then starting at step number 50, I go through 50 to 100. Then I get to the end and I look at my spaceship. Well, what's going to happen? It's not going to look very good. Of course, it's not going to look very good. I skip steps 1 through 50. And that's where we're actually running into a lot of issues with the students. Because see, in the painting process, it's much the same way. Over here on this side, we have a blank canvas. It is, at this point, 0% complete. Over on this side, we have a completed image, whatever it is, and we'll call this 100% complete. That is, all of the steps that need to be taken from a blank image to a finished image have been taken. But a lot of, I would say, less experienced or junior artists, they're jumping in somewhere right about there. And they're skipping, essentially, a lot of the steps in order to get that image to full completion. Now, the entire process can really be viewed in two halves with the illustration. That is, if we divide it in half, you're right at about 50%. This half is going to be the concept phase. And this half is the actual painting phase. And I want to challenge you to take more time in the concept phase because there's a lot of steps here. You don't want to end up with the spaceship that's only half done. And it's also a great way that you can improve the quality of your illustrations right away. And that's by having a little more maturity, slowing down a little bit, and then moving through the concept phase before you get to the painting phase. Conversations usually go something like this. All right, man, tell me about your piece. Are you happy with it? No, not really. Okay, so how many composition sketches did you do? I did like 2 sketches and I found one and I liked it and I started painting it. Okay, but before you started painting it, how many value studies did you do? I didn't do any. How many color studies? None? Did you take reference photos of people yourself in like the right poses and stuff? No? Well, there you go. You started at step 50, then you only went from there to 100, so you skipped part of the process. If you want to do better, just make sure that you go through all the steps. So what do you need to do during the concept phase? Well, if I could break it down very simply, the topics you need to go over is composition studies. This is where you're looking for things like, is it going to be a symmetrical composition? Or is it going to be an asymmetrical composition? Is the camera going to be up high or is it going to be down low? Is the cropping going to be really close or is it going to be further out? Other things you want to do, value studies. All right, let's turn off these examples down there. Value studies, what might those look like? They look like something like this. This is where you're experimenting with a couple of different things. Lighting, shading, and values all tied together. Is the character show up from the background because they're lighter or because they're darker? Is the character front lit, top lit, underlit, backlit, rim lit? Go through the variations. The word here is iteration. Improvement comes through iteration. If you're not doing enough iterations, then you're going to have a less quality in your ultimate result. So we got to go through these iterations. What else do you want to do? You want to do your color studies. And we're not talking about changing the color necessarily of the things in the scene. It's not like changing the color of the person's shirt. We're not just making that change. We're looking at bigger changes, such as, is it using a complementary color scheme or analogous color scheme? Is it a warm color scheme or a cool color scheme? These are overall changes that affect everything in the scene, not just the changing of one element or one object in the scene. There's a difference there. Other things that you want to look at is character design. Take time to develop the character outside of the actual painting. Do some sketches where you flesh out how the character looks before you actually start painting that character. Because essentially, you need to give full attention to each element. And think about it in terms of, say, like a pie chart. This is your attention. This is all the attention that you could ever give, 100%, right? At any given moment. Well, if I break up the concept phase, that first half, into individual pieces, each step along the way is where I'm focusing on a different aspect. So say composition is up first. Well, during that composition phase, I'm going to give 100% of my attention to just composing the scene very well. Then once I'm happy with that, I then move to, say, value studies. Then when I do value studies, I give 100% of my attention to developing good value with the lighting and shading combinations. But if you jump in earlier, right? If you jump in later in the process and you skip a lot of those steps, you still have to answer all the same questions, but now you have to answer all the questions at the same time. This means that your attention pie chart looks more like this, because instead of composition or colors or what have you, taking all of your attention at the moment, now composition is only one of lots of things. And then you're trying to do colors at the same time, and you're trying to do posing at the same time, and you're trying to do, character design at the same time. So, this slice is only a fraction as big as the whole pie, and that's why your images aren't as good. The answer for a lot of you guys that I'm speaking with, and probably a lot of the viewers, isn't just spend more time practicing, it's spend time in the right part of the painting process. Make sure you're not skipping steps, because this is one of the things that separates different levels of artist. It's not even the skill. It's that better artists are generally a little more mature. Maturity comes through by pacing the artwork. This stuff, for a lot of people, the concept phase is a little boring, right? A lot of people, they actually love the painting process. That's, putting down the colors, defining the stuff. And the concept phase, they find actually a little boring. And it can be boring. And it can be. It's not as flashy as, the painting process. But this is where maturity comes in. And this is where we have to respect the fact that what we do is a craft. We are skilled craftsmen, and we need to respect the craft. If I didn't respect the Lego building process, I would skip steps. But because I respect it, and I recognize that each step is crucial to getting me to that best result, I'm not going to skip any steps. I'm going to take each one, and I'm methodically going to go through each step before I get to the final. And I want you to do the same thing with your artwork. Go through each step, study what a professional workflow or a painting process is. I suggest you actually go write down your process so that you know what you need to do at each step. Now, I do have a class, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video. I have an illustrating commissions, the professionals process class out on Skillshare. And if you want to go take that, I dive into this whole thing in greater detail. I show you plenty of examples, lots of notations. I have some demonstrations. The whole class is about 3.5 hours long and is broken down in about 5-minute little lessons. Now, the first 1,000 people to follow the link below can get a free premium trial membership to Skillshare. Then you're, of course, free to go check out all the other great classes on Skillshare. You can learn other things like how to use Adobe Photoshop, how to play music, how to cook, how to do creative writing, how to learn watercolor, all of these things. Annual membership is less than $10 a month. I hope you have enjoyed this episode, and maybe you've been inspired to just shake up how you handle your painting process a little bit. There's plenty more videos and tips out here on the Swatches channel. Until you see you next time, keep drawing.